This wasn't just a season-ending injury. It was the moment the WNBA cracked at its foundation. The league didn't just lose a player. It lost the player, the face, the momentum, the main character. And the aftermath? It's been absolutely brutal. When Caitlin Clark announced she was done for the season, the reaction wasn't just disappointment. It was grief. Fans, analysts, even people who only just learned what the Indiana Fever was, everybody felt it. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just move the needle. She was the needle. And now she's gone. Let's be real. This wasn't some minor blip on the radar.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
This was the WNBA's worst-case scenario. A head-on collision between mismanagement, neglect, and the overuse of the one star they built their entire year around. And somehow, it feels like nobody in leadership saw this coming, despite the red flags being everywhere, flashing in neon. And then comes Stephen A. Smith, flaming mic in hand, calling out the league in the most public, dramatic way possible. Say what you will about the man, but when he said the WNBA failed Caitlin Clark, he wasn't lying. They didn't just fail her physically, they failed her strategically, politically, emotionally, on every level. So what actually happened? Caitlin Clark was putting up minutes, selling out arenas, doing more for league ratings than any commissioner could dream of. She was the first real crossover star the WNBA had seen in years, someone who brought in non-basketball fans. And in return, she got hacked, smacked, and shoved game after game while refs swallowed their whistles and league officials stayed silent. There were elbows to the face, full-on body slams, trash talk that went way beyond competition. And what did the league do? Absolutely nothing. No public statements, no rule changes, no strategic protection of their most valuable asset. Meanwhile, fans are watching their favorite player get bulldozed every night, while people on Twitter say she should toughen up. Let's get something straight. Caitlin Clark wasn't asking for special treatment. She was asking for basic safety. She was asking for respect. She was asking the league to step in before things went too far. And now, they're too late. Because not only is she out for the season, but the league is now stuck cleaning up a mess it should have seen coming months ago. They gambled everything on Clark, built the schedule around her, plastered her face on billboards, pushed her into press junkets, and then turned their back the second the criticism rolled in. Remember all that talk about jealous veterans and locker room tension? It wasn't just gossip. It was the reality. Some players couldn't hide their frustration at Clark's instant success. Others lashed out publicly, framing her popularity as privilege. And instead of managing that tension, instead of stepping in with leadership, the WNBA sat back and watched it all burn. And now it's a 5-alarm fire. Ratings? Down. Attendance? Sinking. Sponsorship momentum? On pause. Media attention? Wandering. Because without Caitlin Clark on the court, the league is struggling to give fans a reason to show up. This was supposed to be the season, the turning point, the year women's basketball leveled up into the mainstream. And yet, here we are, dealing with another preventable implosion. And Commissioner Kathy Engelbert? Silent. Almost invisible. Stephen A. didn't hold back, and he shouldn't have. He said what fans have been screaming for weeks. Where is the leadership? Where was the strategy? Where was the plan to protect a 22-year-old rookie being used as the league's entire business model? The reality is brutal. The league let her get run into the ground, physically and emotionally. And when the hits kept coming, they asked her to smile through it. To be the face of the WNBA without the support of the WNBA. It's not just incompetence, it's negligence. But here's where it gets even messier. There's a growing camp of people who are saying, well, this just proves the league can't depend on one player. Now, this is a good thing, that now we'll see the real strength of women's basketball. And yes, of course the league is bigger than one person. But you don't get to make that argument after you spent 6 straight months milking every last drop of Caitlin Clark's star power. You can't build your empire around one woman, put her on every ticket, every ad, every social media post, and then act like her absence is no big deal. That's not how this works. And yet, amid all the chaos, there's a strange little subplot taking shape, the Indiana Fever without Clark. They could have folded. They could have spiraled. But instead, they rallied. They dug in. They played like they had nothing to lose. Lexi Hull, in particular, has become a symbol of that quiet resilience. Diving for loose balls, getting up after every hit, playing with the kind of controlled rage that reminds you, this league is full of dogs. Lexi may not be the headline, but she's the heartbeat. And her toughness? It's not flashy, but it's loud in a different way. She represents what this league could become if it learns to take care of its stars and build up its role players. Because here's the truth. This moment can still be salvaged. The Caitlin Clark era doesn't have to be a cautionary tale. It could be the wake-up call the league desperately needed. But only if leadership changes. Only if they admit the failure. Only if they stop playing politics and start investing in protection, infrastructure, and actual support systems for their players. Because Clark's injury? It wasn't just a fluke. It was the result of an ecosystem that let her carry too much, too fast, with too little backup. And what happens next? That's everything. Will she come back? Of course. But will she trust the system again? Will she throw herself back into the fire for a league that let her burn the first time? That's the real question. Will fans? Will sponsors? Because damage like this doesn't undo itself with a single comeback game. It takes accountability. It takes real change. It takes someone in power finally standing up and saying, we messed up, and we're going to fix it. The problem is, no one said it yet. So now, fans wait. The media waits. The league hangs in limbo. And the person with the most power? Caitlin Clark herself. Because when she does return, the spotlight will be even brighter. The scrutiny, even heavier. And the expectations? Astronomical. The WNBA needs to decide right now. Will they finally build a league worthy of her return? Or will they repeat the same mistakes and hope no one notices? Because this isn't just about one player anymore. It's about trust, growth, future generations. It's about whether women's basketball can finally stop surviving and start thriving. Let us know in the comments. Did the WNBA fail Caitlin Clark? Can the league recover? And when she returns, should she stay loyal to Indiana or start fresh somewhere that actually protects its stars? Subscribe for more updates, because if this season proved anything, it's that when one player speaks, the whole world listens. And Caitlin Clark? Her silence is starting to sound a lot like the calm before the next storm. Caitlin Clark's exit from the WNBA season wasn't just a bad break or a twist of fate. It was the moment the league had to confront the truth it's been running from. You can't build an empire on star power and forget to build the infrastructure around it. And now that the league's brightest star is benched, not just physically but symbolically, everything else is being exposed. The cracks in leadership, the empty promises of growth, the glaring lack of a long-term vision, it's all right there in plain sight. So let's go deeper. What no one seems to be acknowledging is just how much pressure was being dumped on Clark's shoulders from the moment she entered the league. From the day she was drafted, she wasn't just a player. She was the solution, the fix-all, the answer to every ratings dip, every sponsor hesitation, every empty arena. And here's the kicker. She delivered. Clark came in and gave them the numbers, the buzz, the fans. She did what most rookies only dream of. She made the league relevant. And instead of supporting that momentum with smart scheduling, better media training, intentional star development, or even basic on-court protection, the league sat back and let her become a target. And yes, a target. Physically? Absolutely. She was taking hits that would have been techs in any other league. But verbally, culturally, politically, she became a lightning rod for every conversation about privilege, race, femininity, and fame in women's sports. Which, okay, yes, those are necessary discussions. But instead of creating space for them with leadership and empathy, the WNBA let it all funnel through Clark like a human filter. No rookie media coaching. No league-wide statement. No protective shield. Just silence. And silence? It speaks volumes. Because here's the quiet part no one wants to say out loud. The WNBA was not ready for Caitlin Clark. They thought they were. They wanted to be. But the infrastructure, the leadership, the PR strategy, the cultural savvy, it just wasn't there. This is a league still figuring itself out. A league trying to navigate a world that only recently started really paying attention. So when Clark showed up with a flood of media coverage, corporate interest, and national attention, it wasn't just a gift. It was a test. And they failed. Because instead of treating her rise as a shared opportunity, too many saw it as a threat. Instead of amplifying her success as a win for everyone, it became a weird mix of gatekeeping, hostility, and unspoken resentment. It's not that Clark wanted to be the face of the league. The league made her the face, and then abandoned her when the spotlight got too hot. And now we're here. Ratings are down. Sponsorship interest has cooled. Fan excitement has dimmed. And the league has no backup plan. No succession strategy. No narrative bridge. Just silence. Which brings us to another problem. Nobody stepped up. When Clark went down, who filled that vacuum? There's talent in this league, undeniably. Aya Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Eric Ogunbowl. But the WNBA has never figured out how to package its stars in a way that captures the broader audience. And instead of using the Clark moment to elevate everyone, they overexposed her and underdeveloped everyone else. That's not Caitlyn's fault. That's a marketing failure. It's the difference between a league building a movement and a league riding a wave. Clark was the wave, and when it crashed, they were left flailing. And this is what people like Stephen A. Smith were yelling about. Not just the injury, not just the hits on the court, but the complete absence of a structural safety net. The lack of vision. The disrespect of potential. Because here's the part that should scare WNBA leadership the most. They've jeopardized the next generation. Young girls were watching Caitlin Clark with awe, not just because of her game, but because she was finally proving that you could be a woman in sports and command the world attention. Now what are those girls seeing? A player used up and discarded in her rookie year. A league that let her get bullied for being popular. A business that couldn't even give her a proper medical exit without turning it into a scandal. That's the legacy being written right now. And let's get even more real. What does Caitlin Clark do next? Because yeah, she's injured now, but she'll be back. And when she returns, she'll have options. More than people realize. Overseas contracts, startup leagues, TV deals, media pivots, even partial ownership opportunities. You think someone like Caitlin Clark needs the WNBA? Let's be clear, the WNBA needs her. But what incentive does she have to stay loyal to a system that broke her down and stood by as she took the heat? She gave them everything, her time, her body, her brand, her platform. And in return, they gave her elbows to the face, bad officiating, jealous rivalries, and absolutely no protection. So when free agency rolls around, or worse, when her endorsement contracts start pulling her toward flashier opportunities, how do you convince her to stay? How do you convince any star to stay? Because if this can happen to Caitlin Clark, it can happen to anybody. That's the damage here. Not just to a player or a team or even this season. This is long-term brand erosion. A trust collapse. A remember when era that could have been historic but is now being spoken about in past tense. The WNBA had a chance to enter a new age. And instead of building the future, they clung to the past. They tried to manage a star instead of empowering her. They tried to control the moment instead of growing it. And now, they're scrambling, chasing a narrative they used to lead, hoping that someone, anyone, will step into the void and make fans care again. But fans don't just care because you tell them to. They care because they feel something. And right now, what they're feeling is betrayal. Clark's injury may have been physical, but the wound left behind, that's emotional. That's cultural. That's going to take years to heal. Unless, of course, someone finally steps up. Unless the league owns its failure, rebuilds trust, listens to its players, invests in safety, in visibility, in infrastructure, not just star power. Because the Caitlin Clark moment isn't gone. It just paused. The question now is, when it resumes, will the WNBA deserve it? Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury wasn't just the end of a chapter. It cracked open a deeper, more uncomfortable question the WNBA didn't want to face. What happens when your only plan is gone? See, Caitlin was never just a player in the league. She was the league's marketing department, the league's relevance. The reason broadcasters suddenly cared, the reason jersey sales skyrocketed, the reason people who couldn't name a single other player were suddenly watching regular season games on national television. The moment she was announced as out for the season, all the glossy graphics and behind-the-scenes, women supporting women slogans came crashing down. Because now we've seen the consequences of putting all your chips on one rookie's shoulders. And surprise, it didn't work out the way anyone hoped. Let's talk about the business side that no one's breaking down. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, it wasn't just ESPN and ABC that scrambled to get in on the action. Every brand with a sneaker, smoothie, or sweat-wicking headband wanted a piece. You could practically feel the collective industry sigh of relief. Finally, a breakout star with mainstream appeal. She was wholesome, competitive, ridiculously skilled, and camera-ready. It was as if someone manifested her in a boardroom focus group. The endorsements poured in. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. She became a marketing unicorn, the kind you build entire strategies around. And now, those brands are frozen. They're sitting in meetings trying to figure out how to pivot the campaign when the star isn't suiting up for the rest of the year. Merchandise slows. Engagement drops. Viewership contracts. Ad revenue shrinks. You don't have to be a marketing exec to understand what that means. This injury didn't just bruise a rookie, it bruised the entire economy around her. So while Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is out here trying to keep the tone optimistic, the reality is bleak. This wasn't just a hiccup in the league's storyline. This was their golden goose getting plucked, and they don't have a backup bird in the nest. And let's make one thing very clear. This didn't have to happen. Because long before her injury, the signs were there. Overuse, physical targeting, lack of referee protection, no formal strategy for how to handle the intensity of her celebrity and what that meant on the court. You think no one in the building saw this coming? Of course they did. But nobody wanted to rock the boat. So instead of stepping in early, enforcing stricter foul calls, slowing down her minutes, building a real load management plan, or even just preparing the public for the idea that she might need a rest window, they waited. They waited until she broke, until the only thing driving the season collapsed. And now they're pretending this is just part of the game. No, this was a failure in league operations. Period. And here's another angle we need to talk about: mental health. Caitlin Clark didn't just get injured. She got isolated. All season, she was being asked to carry her team, the league, the media, and the expectations of every little girl watching women's basketball for the first time. She was expected to take the hits, stay humble, play perfect, never complain, never miss a post-game interview, and never show the pressure. Because the second she did, the media would have turned her into a diva. Do you know how exhausting that is? Do you know how many male athletes fold under a fraction of that pressure? But Caitlin didn't fold. She stayed poised, graceful, silent. And now that silence is being used against her, like she was complicit in her own overexposure. Let's not get it twisted. Clark didn't ask for any of this. She asked to play basketball. She asked for fairness. She asked to be protected just like any other top-tier rookie should be. Instead, she was put in a glass box, idolized and ignored all at once. And when she broke down, they let her fall quietly, like a tab being closed in a browser window. So here's where we go next: the rest of the league. Because while everyone's focused on Clark, the rest of the WNBA has been thrust into a brutal spotlight of their own. Players are being watched more closely now. Every quote, every foul, every eye roll, every comment on social media, every press conference question that starts with "so," with Caitlin gone. It's not fair, and they know it. They didn't ask to be side characters in this saga. And yet, they've been cast as the backdrop. Some are trying to lean in. Others are doing damage control. A few are saying what they've wanted to say for months. We're tired of being overshadowed. But here's the hard truth. No one else stepped up. The league had years to build household names. Aya Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Jewel Lloyd, these are elite athletes. But the league never pushed them into the cultural mainstream the way they did with Clark. Why? Because they weren't getting the viral numbers. They weren't bringing in the brand deals. So instead of building multiple stars, the WNBA banked on one. And now they're stuck in scramble mode, asking everyone else to pick up the slack, players they never invested in at the same level. Players who now have to answer for a season that was never really about them. It's not just messy, it's unsustainable. Because if the league is going to survive this, they need to do more than apologize behind closed doors. They need to reimagine how they develop stars, how they distribute media attention, how they ensure that next time a player starts gaining traction, they don't just throw her into the deep end with weights tied to her ankles. This should be a turning point, because Caitlin Clark will come back. Make no mistake, and when she does, she'll be even bigger. The media circus will double. The expectations will triple. But the question is, will the league be ready next time? Will they build around her or build with her? Will they share the spotlight or trap her in it? Will they evolve or repeat the exact same mistake? Because this moment isn't just about a torn-up stat line. It's a cultural checkpoint. It's a pause in the narrative. A moment to ask, is women's basketball going to move forward as a community or keep operating like a broken system, chasing one paycheck at a time? Caitlin Clark's injury exposed it all. The cracks, the exploitation, the fear of too much success too soon. And now, there's no hiding it. So we'll end with this. Caitlin's not the end of the story. She's the beginning of a new one. One that the WNBA now has to write, whether it's ready or not. So what do you think? Can a league bounce back from this? Should Clark take control of her own narrative and forge a new path? Or is this the moment women's sports finally says, no more stars without structure? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe, because if the league fumbles this comeback, you better believe we'll be here to narrate every last play.